Hi everybody, my name is Hon. I'm with Tern Bicycles. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our company, our products. I hope I won't bore you. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we've learned in the startup journey along the way. So very briefly, we focus on urban transportation and bicycles in particular. Our long-term view of transportation is that cars, mass transit, bicycles will all be working together to move people around. But we think that bicycles are a really important part of that, and we see that even in a lot of European cities where the city centers are increasingly being closed off to cars, and the governments are encouraging walking and riding. Very briefly, our company, we're in quite a few countries. We've got a few patents. We've done 2 rounds of funding, and we're at decent revenue. We started in 2011, so we are almost 7 years old. I have this slide in here to talk about the benefits of being a startup in Taiwan, but I think it seems like everybody is from Taiwan, so we can skip this. We love being in Taiwan. I was born in the US. I moved here when I was 25. I'm 50 now, so I've been here for half my life. But yes, we love being in Taiwan. We love running a business in Taiwan. So last year, or actually a few years ago, we started thinking about electric bicycles. As maybe a lot of people know, electric bicycles are on a big uptrend. So we started thinking about, hey, how do we do electric bicycles? So we launched a bike called the GSD last year. It was very successful. But in the process, we've learned a few things. So this is the trend, very strong growth. But the key is differentiation, right? So we were actually a little bit late in the game. So Europe is ahead of us in terms of e-bikes. And so really, are we using technology? Are we using brand? Are we using distribution channels? How are we differentiating ourselves from the competition? Because if you don't have any of those, then you're just differentiating on price. And that's a terrible thing. So this is what we came up with. We basically wiped the slate clean, and we thought, well, we don't want to look like all of these other e-bikes. Regular e-bikes are essentially regular bikes with a motor and a battery bolted on. And we thought, well, you don't have to make the same design decisions when you're designing an electric bicycle. Your wheel size could be different, your sitting position could be different. And that leads to a lot of things like more cargo space, lower center of gravity, longer wheelbase. And so this bike, this is the GSD, and it looks a bit different from most other electric bicycles on the market. And I'll show you just a real short video about it. So that's the GSD. We just started shipping 2 weeks ago. And a lot of people around the world are waiting for the product. So, in our start, from 7 years ago, and just in the launch of this product, we've learned a few things. And it might be interesting to share them with you. I think number one, I'm sure you've heard this before, but ideas are easy. People think an idea is great, but ideas are easy. They're a dime a dozen. And for me, really, it's the execution, which is the hard part. And you can't execute good ideas and get good results without the team. I think that's the key thing. Is I hear lots of times people talking about these great ideas, and for me, it always comes back to, well, how are you going to execute? How are you going to get people in that location to execute your idea? So the team is critical, and I think I'm watching the NBA Finals right now, and I think that's the perfect example. Right? We watch LeBron. He's the best player in the world, maybe the best player ever, and he doesn't have a very capable team around him, and it's a little bit painful to watch because he's so good, but his team is so bad. Right? You watch J.R. Smith and you. Of course, the Warriors are constructed very differently, and how Steve Kerr coaches the team, and to even how they use their role players, it's so completely different. So I think everything you think about, you have some great idea. The next thing is, who are you going to get to execute it? So that's something to think about. I think this is something that I've really learned just over the 25 years I've been in Taiwan, is that your reputation is everything. And by reputation, I mean how you conduct yourself, in daily business, how you work with your vendors, all of these things. This is your reputation, because the world is a tiny place. There's so many people here. You run into people and it's like, oh, we're good friends with so and so. It's the world is a tiny place, and if you're in a certain, if you're in AI, it's a small place. There aren't that many players. If you get a reputation as somebody who's not nice to work with, that follows you. When I started Tern 7 years ago, I mentioned it to one of our vendors, suppliers that I had worked with for about 20 years, and her comment to me was, oh, okay, you're starting a new company. How can I help you? What do you need? And this person ended up investing $1 million in us. This is a supplier. But it's because of that long relationship, working a certain way, that follows you. Another thing, maybe this is more important in hardware, but it's you need to be the user. You have to be the user so that you can understand what the user wants. That bike, the GSD, it has a feature where you can stand it up on end. And I gave that, I put it in a presentation to our German distributor. They're our largest by far customer. And our distributor came back and he said, this stand up on end feature, I showed it to our product team and they all laughed. They think it's ridiculous. And I was like, wow, really? I think that's a cool feature because, if you live in an apartment, you have an elevator, you don't want to leave a $4,000 bike outside, and most urban cities are people living in apartments. That's important. You guys, living in Hoya, Germany, you all have garages, so of course it seems ridiculous. But I could only have the confidence, so I ignored them. I said, okay, forget it, you don't know. Because I know, I'm the user, and I think that's a really important feature. And so I think that's something really important. A lot of times people are running businesses and you're not the user. And if you're not, you don't understand the customer as well. So I think that's something really important. Cultural differences. I think as you go out to make your pitches to investors and to partners, this is something really important. I'll give you an example. I'll give you two examples. The other day we were in a product meeting. Our head designer is Finnish, so he said, so the radius on this tube, is it 3.0 millimeters? And our Taiwanese product manager said, yes, it's 4.6. You know, and you're like, the answer is no, it's not yes, it's no. He asked 3.2 and you said 4.6. But that's just a cultural, you know, the Asian style is not to be too confrontational. You know, like I said, our number one customer is in Germany. Many of our top suppliers are in Germany. So the German style is I actually like very much. It's, I disagree with you, and here are the 3 reasons. You know, in Taiwan, it is often more, it's the opposite, which is I tell you fact, 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 and you should infer. You should infer the conclusion. They don't tell you the conclusion, you should infer the conclusion. And so, you know, me coming from the US, this has always been a hard thing. So I'm always in meetings saying, I just heard a lot of talk, what's your point? And I've actually seen the judges say that a few times today also. It's like, okay, I got all this talking, but what does your product do? So I think understanding these cultural differences, and every culture is different, right? From Taiwan to mainland China to Singapore, and of course to Europe, and the French are a bit different as well, right? So really important, and you know, what is that? It's reading, it's going to the countries, it's hanging out in the cafes, it's making friends in those countries. All of that helps. Treasure your good suppliers. This is, or otherwise known as the customer is not always right. This is something I learned when I just got to Taiwan. We had a batch of handlebars come to the factory, and I said, these are crap, the finish is bad, take them back. And then they came back again, I was like, oh, terrible, send them back. And that's a very American mindset, which is, hey, I'm the buyer, I'm always right, and I can be a little bit rude, I can be a little bit arrogant. And then I discovered that, wow, you know, there's only 3 good suppliers of handlebars and seat posts in the world. And you know, I just pissed off one of them, and I might not be able to buy from them again. So I think that's something also super important, that there are not that many good suppliers. And especially if you're a startup, you're not very big. So if you find a good supplier, and they're pretty big, and they are willing to work with you, you need to treasure that, because that's something very rare and hard to find. I think also very important, the right investors. You need to find the investors who have similar goals as you. I think we have a mix of people in here. The professionals, private equity, venture guys, they need an exit. You need to give them a clear, defined exit. Other investors may not have such a short, defined timeline. We ended up looking, so our investors, we have one professional investor, but our other investors are, well, one of them is our factory, and others are our distributors. So these are people who believe in our mission, they believe in the success of the company, and they don't need a very defined timeline. And so that's something that you need to figure out for yourselves. What do you need as a company? And look for those types of investors. And those are just a few of the things we've learned, but thanks for your time.